Start off real briefly talking about John Wick 4 since that came out yesterday and I went and watched it. I guess technically it comes out today, but I watched it yesterday. So, and here there were where I'm at, there were showings yesterday early evening all the way until like late at night, post midnight into today. So that's why I'm saying it came out yesterday. Because where I'm at, they were showing it like, when people were getting off of work forward. So we're going to do that. However, so I'm not going to get into it too much because I'm not going to spoil anything from it. I'm not going to tell you how it ends. I'm not going to tell you what goes on. It's going to be spoiler free. Basically, I just want to point out the fact that John Wick 4 is an excellent addition to the franchise of John Wick and the series of movies that it has been. I think that it was very smart for them to go about it the way that they did because of the fact that when you have something like John Wick, you have the issues of what some people have been complaining about, where you end up with John Wick, and then you have John Wick 2, and then you have John Wick 3, and people go, oh, it gets consecutively worse. Well, the problem with that train of thought is that it's not necessarily that the franchise is getting worse or that the movies are doing worse, that they're being written poorly. Typically what happens is you go into John Wick 1, and the only thing you're expecting, and the only expectation you have for it, is Keanu Reeves with guns goes through and does Keanu Reeves with guns stuff. Okay? And then the story unfolds and you enjoy it. Well, now you have an understanding of what's going on in this universe to some extent. But they've raised questions in regards to how that worked, how that went about, and how that seems to unfold. So you have John Wick 2, which moves the story and plot forward, as a sequel should, and tries to answer some of these questions. So you get a better look into the Continental and how these things work. And then you have some more questions about some things, and the story once again is moved forward. And then you have John Wick 3. So by this point, you have a better understanding and you have more expectations. So the thing is as you have expectations, your enjoyment is going to decline because now you're expecting certain things to have certain outcomes. Meanwhile, that's not necessarily how it works. You're just sitting there with, yes, my expectations are this, and well, you click this one. So when you're watching something like that, you've just got a set of expectations that's really just not going to benefit to you and enjoying the movie as much. If you can manage to remove your expectations from things like this, you're going to have a more enjoyable experience. And that's with any kind of movie or media that you're trying to consume, is the less expectation you have for it, the more enjoyable it will be. That's why doing things like comic movies is difficult, because you have a developed character, you have developed stories and known universes and rules within them that you now have to follow. And you have expectations from a fan base that you now have to meet or exceed, which is extremely difficult to do. Especially when someone like DC comes in and starts trying to do the same thing, and everybody's experienced Marvel for a decade doing theirs and developing it. Now everybody has a very high expectation because of Marvel starting and developing and building that in the first place, that DC now has to meet or exceed at the beginning. It just sets an unreachable expectation. So what I'm getting at is the fact that this is the problem that people have had with John Wick 2 and 3. And because of the comments about it, they took the appropriate approach and said, look, the story has progressed to this point. There are still some questions like, hey, how would this unfold? What would happen next? Etc., etc., etc. And then they said, you know what, we've got a few ways that this could probably be concluded, and if we keep going, it's just going to end up being something ridiculous like Fast and Furious, where people just criticize it as being ridiculous, uninteresting, and how it's completely moved away from the plot of the movie, and it's created its own thing on a completely different level. Like, Fast and Furious is now an action movie when before it was about cars and racing, right? Like, it's not what, like, I don't enjoy Fast and Furious as an action movie fan because of the fact that that's not what I'm watching Fast and Furious for, right? It's not what I want from it, but that's what they've turned it into. So they've, instead of allowing John Wick to end up going like 20 movies deep, they said we were going to have to come up with a conclusion, and they came up with the conclusion. So there's, I mean, there you have it. It's a great movie. It delivers exactly what you're expecting. You get Keanu Reeves going through, being an assassin, and doing his assassin stuff. You get a lot of answers to the questions that have been raised from the first movie all the way through, if you watch all of them. It's a coherent plot that moves forward successively in a good way. And it's a true story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You can watch all 4 of them in succession, and you get an overarching plot that goes through all of them, whereas each movie also has their own individual plot as well, which is excellently done. If you're looking at it from a writing perspective, that's very excellently done and delivered, which is something that Hollywood lacks today. They don't write things. They just say, here's something that was written, but you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to do it my way, so I'm going to take the things from that I can fuck up, and I'm going to make it my way, and then everybody criticizes it, and then you have the whole go woke, go broke, or get woke, go broke kind of thing, depending on who says it. And that's kind of what's devolved in Hollywood, and now it's just a completely different thing. Like, that's why I went and watched John Wick in the movie theater, because instead of being something that's written, that's known, and fucked up, it was something new, not necessarily a new premise. You're probably not ever going to come up with another new premise again, but it's a new story that they were creative with, that they had to be creative with, that they had to actually write and think about, and they had to deliver. And I feel that they've done a good job of that. So, that's what I have to say about John Wick 4. Highly recommend. I would say, as a franchise, 10 out of 10. It is my favorite new franchise that exists in movies, and nobody's really gone out of their way to fuck it up yet, right? So give it that much. I think it